Just regular Lyman Day.
Hello, everybody. Okay, there we go. Whew. We're having a myriad of technical issues. A myriad.
That's a big word.
Yes, I know. A myriad of issues, and I gotta shut the door because Haley didn't shut it.
All right.
You didn't.
Oh, sorry. I'm on my phone and everything.
Yeah. We're live.
I'm trying to set up an interview.
See, and I didn't even turn the light on.
It's really a Tuesday, isn't it?
More like a Monday. For some reason, it won't connect to the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna share this to the other Facebook pages.
Yes,
So if you've just joined us, welcome.
Share it
Appreciate
on
you.
mine right now.
And I will share this via my page. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today's topic, we asked you yesterday, what did you want to talk about?
Yes.
And everyone wanted to talk about, well, not everybody, but most people wanted to talk about spring.
So here we are. Snow's on the ground, and we're talking about spring.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask all at once.
And I can't do it with one hand. This is why you have
Feed.
lav mics.
Do you want me to also share it on? Do you want me to share it on Beyond the Forecast? Are you just sharing on Beyond the Forecast right now?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, I'll share it on just mine.
I'm trying.
Sorry, guys.
Welcome to the life of technology when it doesn't want to work.
We did warn you guys that we were still trying to mess around and figure everything out. So it's actually not on us.
Not on us. Did you do 9 and 10?
No, I didn't. You want me to right now?
No, I am.
Oh. Never mind.
Oh, wait. I gotta log in.
Oh, I can do it. I'm right here.
Just do it then. Technology. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you all being here for Beyond the Forecast. Podcast number 4. Yes, we are going to be talking about spring, obviously, because it is not spring. There's about an inch or two of snow on the ground after a day of 60s and wearing shorts and in nice weather. A lot of people might be asking yourselves, where's spring? This is very typical from Northern Michigan. Very typical. You're not safe from snow until after Mother's Day. So
Okay, but here's the thing about that. That was a saying that you all said to me when I first started here. It had never held true until I think this year.
that's false. Last year we
Not
didn't
for
have
Mother's
weather.
Day.
Yeah, we had 6 inches of snow on Mother's Day 2 years ago.
I don't think I was here. I wasn't here 2 years ago.
Yeah, you were. This is gonna be your 3rd year.
Oh yeah, I don't remember that.
Mother's Day we don't always get, but we tend to get wet, heavy snow. It was 2 years in a row. Maybe it wasn't 2 years ago, but
It was definitely not 2 years ago. This is the first true Northern Michigan winter that I've been a part of.
Now you got me wondering.
Because I don't think it was 2 years ago. If it was,
But
I don't
yes,
remember.
you're not safe from
No, April is still definitely
snow until after Mother's Day.
a month that you can get snow in for us.
But yes, we're going to talk about spring because spring should be changing. It is going to be a changing of the guard for us and our weather. And what I mean by that is we should be going from La Nina to neutral.
Yes.
And we'll explain all that and what it means. But it should be changing the way we see everything here either later this month or next month.
Yes.
Now, granted, change like that can take weeks,
A
months.
while.
But sometimes it does arrive
Yes.
as planned. Now I got to figure out the last time we had snow on Mother's Day. Because now I'm interested.
Yeah, I am curious. I don't recall it.
Does anybody in chat remember the last time we had the snow on
Yeah,
Mother's
did you
Day?
guys maybe? So I lived in Reed City the past 2 years.
No, you still would have had it.
So I don't remember. But yeah, if anyone in the chat
Let's see.
remembers
Traverse City.
the last time they saw snow on Mother's Day.
It's going to take too long. I don't have a keyboard. That's fine.
We'll figure it out later.
But yes, the majority of the time, spring is never really spring.
Yes.
Last year was a weird occasion that we just didn't have winter in general.
Right.
But usually, what you see is a mixture of warm weather and winter fighting it out until at least mid-May.
Mm-hmm.
And this year is not going to be any different. If anything, this year is still holding on to a little bit of winter.
Yes.
And rings true. We have winter weather advisories, April 15th. We have 1 to 2 inches of snow out there. So, yeah, that is what we are currently seeing. But
One
that
plus
is,
with this one is that it melts fast.
it does. To be quite honest with you, and I love the National Weather Service, and I love
Of
Gatorade,
course.
but advisory for 1 to 3 inches of snow in mid-April. I mean, I understand why they
After
did
the
it.
winter we had, I don't think necessary.
No. Last year, I would have gotten it a little more. I still get it to this day because people tend to forget what it's like driving into snow very quickly. But at the same time, I was like, really? I saw those yesterday. I was like, come on now.
I also think probably not a hot take. I think driving in like this type of snow is actually harder than driving in like a winter storm, because normally like the roads are like the plow guys are
It
working really
depends.
hard to keep up the road clean when it's a consistent snow.
Yeah.
When it's this, it's like sometimes plows aren't out, they're taking a little bit more leisure, so then you're driving in like this gross slush, and then it gets a little bit more slippery
spring
out
snow
there.
is always worse because if you get that slush, it slows you way down.
Yeah.
But I mean, the winter storm that we had Christmas of 2 years ago.
Yes.
That was
bad.
terrible.
That was really bad.
It took me 4 hours to get to Saginaw because it was Christmas Eve and family Christmas is down in Saginaw.
Yeah.
And that was brutal. But yeah, so
I'll say it took me 40 minutes to get home from Reed City.
yeah, that was tough.
That was bad. That was white out.
That was
windy.
terrible. Wind,
Yeah.
ice, you name it. There was just no keeping up with that one.
Yeah.
But these kind of snows, it's just annoyance at this point.
Pretty much.
It coats the ground, it coats the trees, the roads are wet. It's annoyance.
It's funny because like at the beginning of fall when we get snow like this,
Everyone's like,
everyone's
"Oh,
excited.
snow."
You start playing Christmas music, everyone's so pumped.
Right.
Now everyone is mad at us.
Everybody is mad at us.
They're a little annoyed. Rachel Rademacher.
Yeah, leave it to Rachel.
Definitely annoyed right now with the situation that we're in.
Yeah, of course. No, it makes, it's spring. Welcome to spring. So
Yes.
let's talk about the spring that we've had so far and what we foresee happening. So we just continued on from winter into the beginning of spring
Yes.
in La Nina pattern. So that means everything out of the northwest still, chilly air. We've been getting a few systems, but they're still out of that west-northwest direction, which
Yep.
means we've been getting the rain, freezing rain mix, snow.
A little bit of lake effect still.
Yeah, today is lake effect, which
Yes.
is like April 15th. Welcome to lake effect. It's
Yeah.
still possible. It just takes a colder air mass, which, again, these low pressure systems, when you get them, especially in the fall or spring, they're bigger, more wind, colder
Yep.
air. And that is why we are seeing the snow that we're seeing after
And
a
the
60-degree
winds.
day.
Yeah.
And the wind. Yeah, wind chills.
Oh gosh.
So what's supposed to happen is, if you recall back to fall,
Yes.
we took forever to go from El Nino to La Nina.
did.
La Nina was supposed to happen like May of last year.
Yeah.
And we went to neutral and we sat in neutral for 6 months, which just kind of had us hovering around. So the things that we're talking about here, El Nino is warm air from the southwest. La Nina is cold air from the northwest.
Yeah.
Neutral is you're sitting in between the patterns. And neutral is what you kind of shift into going from El
It's
Nino
kind
to
of
La
like
Nina.
the overall theme of what kind of weather you're going to get.
Right.
It's,
If it's El Nino, it's going to be warm for us.
yes.
If it's La Nina, it's going to be colder for us.
If it's neutral,
Should just
expect
be
normal.
So,
The light coating is on Petoskey early this morning.
oh, the Petoskey news
Biggest thing-
scanner. Hey. Biggest thing has been the wind since around
Yeah, I
noon yesterday.
bet.
Yeah, the tip of the mint yesterday. So I saw a really funny meme. It said, well, it was a weather graphic, but it said, "What day can you expect for your trash can?" And it was in the middle. It said Sarah's yard.
Yeah.
Mine only blew open. I missed
Okay.
the trash. I guess apparently I missed the timing of trash because it blew open and there was still trash in it. But yeah, mine didn't blow over. But yeah, there was people's trash cans blowing everywhere.
I bet,
yesterday.
yeah.
So yeah, the winds have been nasty, but that's with this typical low pressure system. The low
Yeah.
is over Lake Superior. So
At
that
the
means
moment, yes.
areas down towards the lower peninsula going to see those gusty winds, especially tip of the mid. Now, tip of the mid in general, the reason you guys are so windy is because you're funneling everything through the straits.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and if it's a southwest wind like we saw yesterday, yeah, very, very windy conditions. But it's all tied to the transition of La Nina to neutral.
Yes.
We need to go back to neutral, and that will set us up for the rest of a normal spring. El Nino is supposed to take back over June?
I would say isn't the beginning of summer.
But we can also check where the phases are. So to dive more into these phases, everyone probably is familiar with El Nino, at least the name of El Nino.
I feel like that's like a very like clicky word.
It came in like the 90s, and everyone's like, what is El Nino?
It's the 90s version of
SNL
Bomb Cyclone.
Yeah, it is. El Nino, the SNL even did a skit about it, if you can recall back to Chris Farley. El Nino, he's a wrestler. But La Nina is the opposite of the pattern. And for us, that means cold air from the northwest, which sets us up for like a Clipper system winter, a below average summer, but wet.
Yes.
So you're supposed to get a wet summer or more moisture in the winter, which we did have a lot of moisture.
We did, yeah.
But not necessarily
not system based, more lake effect based.
Lake based. But neutral is not too hot, not too cold. It's kind of the Goldilocks of the weather patterns.
Pretty much, yeah.
But what it sets you up for is what you'll be going into. Right now, going out of La Nina, we're still seeing the effects of that colder air. So we have that snow on the ground. We're still seeing the impacts of, hey, cold air for this day, that day, and then a 60-degree day, but then back into 3 days of cold weather.
Exactly, the northwest wind shifting cold air back into our region.
Right.
Waiting for our system to develop to shift us back into the southwest winds to give us more warm air. It's a fun little thing. But yeah, we normally see more of those La Ninas right now, and that's why we are dealing with more of those gusty winds and colder air, just why we can't seem to shake the 30s and 40s.
Yeah. For some reason, it just will not happen.
Yeah.
But according to climate.gov, La Nina conditions persisted through February. Yes, we know that. But forecasters expect Enzo to develop and last in the next month, so this month. But last and be persistent through Northern Hemisphere summer. So El Nino is not supposed to arrive
till fall. Got it.
So essentially, imagine the exact opposite of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, that's interesting too. It's like this isn't like set in stone.
No.
This like
it's you're on Mother Nature's time.
Yeah, as we all know here in Northern Michigan.
Yeah.
It's not up to us at all. And that's why we watch it. I look at that forecast like once a week.
Yeah.
Just to see what's happening.
They update climate about every 90 days or so.
Yeah.
And the outlook for climate, because that's seasons. 90 days is a season.
Yes.
So with that being said, if Enzo neutral holds strong through summer and spring, if we switch over in time, that would mean a fairly average and
kind of what we saw last summer.
Right. You'll have your hot days. You'll have your cooler days. You'll have your rainy days.
You'll have your sunny
dry
days.
You'll probably have that dry stint. And I know that sounds very bland, but that's what you can expect with that type of pattern.
I'll say that's summer.
When you look at weather is short-term patterns, climate is long-term patterns.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when you look back at patterns...
Which we'll talk about more next week, too. About
yes, we will talk about that next week because it's Earth Day and...
Climate science,
carbon footprint, all that stuff going along with that. We'll have a week dedicated to that next week. A lot of people don't understand the difference between climate and weather. They think they're the same. Weather is short-term
right here,
patterns.
right now.
What's happening in the atmosphere now. Climate is what's happened in the atmosphere over 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
It's
the history of weather.
Yes, it's a history. Put it that way. Yeah. So it's interesting to look at climate because it's different than what you're seeing now, of course.
Exactly.
But in the now, we should be going to neutral this month.
Yes.
Which would set us up for a normal end to spring. Doesn't mean we're getting rid of all impacts of La Nina, but we're coming out of La Nina. And then we'll be kind of sitting neutral for the summer, which will be like last summer.
Yeah.
Now, what you have to recall from last winter, El Nino was there was no pattern
No,
for
it's quiet.
that strong of El Nino that we've ever
Nothing.
seen in the past. That was the
Yeah.
first time we had seen El Nino that strong, and that's where the questions arise:
Yes.
why, how, when? You know, the simple science in the scientist in your head is like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And
Because
that's
you're
where you deep
taught
dive.
that these two things matter so much.
Yes.
Wow.
Hit my elbow on the glass,
Then
on glass case of emotion.
Suddenly, it happens,
Yeah.
and then nothing happens, and you're like, but I was told that when an El Nino happens, I need to expect warm air to come in and all this, and nothing happened.
And so when you have, you know, the ridiculously strong El Nino pattern we did last year, well, that phased out a whole season for us,
Yeah.
which we never really have seen before. So going into neutral, this could set up of two ways. You could
Yes.
set up as we are right now, where it's just going into neutral, getting rid of winter, getting rid of La Nina, and you have normal
Going to
season.
summer.
Go into summer. Or El Nino could pop his head out earlier and be like, hey,
I'm here.
I'm here. And that could lead to a hotter, drier summer.
Yes.
But as of right now, everything we're looking at down the road, it should be a normal summer for us, spring and summer, I should
Yeah.
say, where you have temperatures right around normal for May, June, or I should say May. June, technically summer.
Right.
June, July, and August should be normal.
Yeah.
So we should have normal rain. We shouldn't have any drought conditions. We should have normal temperatures. Shouldn't have
And we are seeing that
crazy ups and downs.
kind of self-correct, if you want to say that, coming out of that La Nina to the neutral. Watching Climate Prediction Center, they put out what the forecast looks like for temperatures and precipitation types. Oh, what did Martin? Oh, thank you, Martin, for sending that link, and we'll have to check that out for more research. But when we do that, we get to see what the weather will look like in the way future, and they use that with climate research. So they look at the history of weather, and they look at the weeks of the past 30 years, and they say, okay, well, normally in northern Michigan, we see really wet conditions. So we can forecast and say that the end of April is going to be more wet because that's what we've seen in climate.
Right.
So the next couple of weeks looks like we're going to see above average conditions compared to right now of more rain and of warmer temperatures. So that
Right.
means we should be actually saying goodbye to the 30s and 40s finally, moving more into average. Now, average this time of year is 50s. So looking at maybe 50s, maybe even some 60s starting to pop up a little bit more across the region. So that's kind of our indicator that La Nina is actually phasing out. It's not holding on for another week or so. It actually is moving into better conditions.
And what a lot of people need to understand and not get it confused with is coming out of spring, or
Yes.
coming out of winter into spring.
Yes.
You know, we are jumping into warmer weather. Yes, the daytime averages are getting higher, all that jazz. But what you're going to see is those temperatures. So like late April, as Haley was talking about, April 22nd, 23rd, you're going to see a ridge of warmer air push well into Canada. If everything holds together, the pattern right now is showing the jet stream getting well into Canada,
Right.
giving us temperatures 60s, 70s, maybe getting close to 80 as we get close to May. But that is the difference between where we can be and where we should be.
Yes.
We should be in the 50s for the most part by the
Exactly.
end of April.
Yeah.
So if you're in the 60s, 70s, 80s, obviously there's something brewing or changing
Right.
in the weather patterns. And that's what we are looking at going into May, is we're finally coming out of La Nina, which is just northwest winds, cold.
Yeah. It's kind of like the ingredients for everything, which is why we have that forecast for such warm air.
Right.
On top of us actually switching over from spring-like to more spring-like conditions, we're also leaving an entire big system, or the way the Earth is, the La Nina.
Now
So
I have
those
to
two
look.
working together, that's where we kind of start to see a little bit more of a change. So yeah, warmer temperatures. I really hope, I might sound like a pessimistic person here. I really hope we don't see 80 degrees in May. That's what burned us last year. Do you remember that 80
had
degree?
90.
Yeah, we had like such a warm stretch of weather in
actually,
May.
it's all of the last few years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So really in the last 4 or 5 years, if you go back to May, May has been the warmest month because they've been in the 90s. Oh man, I want to say it was first COVID year, 2020.
Okay.
May was very warm.
Yes. There's also flooding that year
2021,
too, right?
2022, again, 2022, the Gaylord tornado, it was 90
Yeah.
and it was at late May.
Yep.
Last year, May was very warm. 2 years ago, May was very warm.
Yeah.
So
And then
there's
last
been
year.
May has been the outstanding weird month.
Yeah.
When you look back at our patterns for the last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then June, July, and August kind of.
Paper, but everyone goes back to that weekend in May. At least here at 9 and 10. Maybe not everyone across northern Michigan.
It was a weird May.
But last May, we got like a really warm like couple of days. And I think it was like one of the warmest days we saw like all summer season. And the amount of times our boss Dan would go. But remember when we saw those 80s in May and you were like, stop comparing to May. We're not in May
not even
anymore.
I'm trying to find the Arctic oscillation models where we're sitting currently. That will give you a good idea of
What you're seeing.
where we are at in La
Yeah.
Nina. This is, again, another reason why our setup is going to be changing. So I can literally have a mouse and keyboard and show you guys exactly what I'm trying to find.
Exactly. The Toski News Scanner says 2022, April, May also had those really hot days that
Yes.
likely led to the big alewife die-off in Little Traverse Bay. That is an excellent point. Yes. Warming up too fast in the waters definitely causes either like algae blooms or deaths, depending on where you are.
It all depends on the water temps, too.
Yeah.
The last several years, we haven't had much ice, so the water temps have been warm, which more oxygen in water, what's that get you? More vegetation.
Yes.
But the big thing with this year is we did get to 40% ice. That was
Yes.
huge. Our waters were able to cool a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Neutrals, getting back to neutrals, not going to allow the lakes to just
Shoot
warm
up.
right up.
Yeah.
Last year, the big reason our lakes were ridiculous and what led to all the lake effect snow was because we didn't have, I think maybe at most we got to 7%.
I was
last
going to say
winter.
10% at most.
Maybe at most. But the waters were wide open all year. And we had
Yeah.
a warm spring, we had a warm summer, we had an extremely warm fall. And that led to temperatures in the lakes at 50s and 60s in December.
Which was crazy.
So the lakes are going through just as much stress as everything else in Michigan.
Right.
And that's the next question is will, and I always bring people back to this because people always ask questions about what about this? What about that?
Mm-hmm.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? The old physics saying, the old law, if you will. But
Just calling it a saying is crazy.
just an old law, physics law. But with that being said, Mother Nature will always right the ship.
Yes.
If something's out of balance, Mother Nature will find a way to balance it
It's
back
like
out.
Star Wars. The
But
Force
you might
always
not
wins.
be happy with how she balances it out.
Yeah.
And the problem is everything that's getting balanced out as of the last 10, 15 years has been extreme. And I always point to the lakes being a foot below average. Remember when the lakes were a foot, 2 feet below average? We dredged, everybody. The state was funding a bunch of things because we were never getting that water back. One winter, we got that water back plus a foot.
Right.
So the lakes completely froze over. We got all of that moisture back in the lakes, and our levels have been, for the last 10 years, extremely high. And Mother Nature balanced the ship. Wasn't exactly the way we wanted to after we dredged and spent a bunch of money, and
You're right.
that's not the way we exactly wanted it. But she righted the ship. But now what you're seeing is the spikes of righting the ship are getting
A little bit
way
more.
crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that you're seeing things get out of, not out of hand by any means, but you're seeing the more of the extremes.
Yeah.
As long as the patterns continue to be extremes, you're going to get those extremes.
You're going to get extreme reactions.
And last year's pattern was the most extreme pattern that we had ever seen
It was.
in climate.
Yeah.
And this winter, and into this spring is finally back to, oh, hey,
A normal.
brought it back down a
But
few
then
notches.
it leads
Granted, it hasn't been extremely normal winter, but it was
No.
more normal
than the past.
compared to last winter.
Yeah.
But that should allow the lakes to reorganize a little bit. That should allow everything that is trees, that is wildlife, to balance itself out a little bit after what was a year of what the heck is going on.
I'm only a few years into my career, but last winter I've never been more confused by how it affected all of us. Like
That was a confusing winter.
coming into work, I come into work at the time 1:30, 2 a.m. and to see the overnight lows, it still being like only like 37 degrees out
The lows didn't low.
was like insane to me. Like trying to explain to people the reason why the snow wasn't sticking around or anything is because we never load.
No,
The low didn't low.
Traverse City's average temperature through winter last year was
Yeah, and that was like honestly the
30,
biggest thing.
40
And
degrees.
that's why your lakes also stayed warm.
right.
Is because we never got the drop off low temperatures.
No.
I think we maybe had 3 days of negative temperatures last winter.
Not even.
Yeah, like not even. Maybe only in the UP.
Maybe.
Like
The thing with last winter is we had 1 week, and it was one clipper system.
Yep.
And it brought us lake effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove through it, which I was like, this is terrible. But yeah, we only had 1 week. And then everything after that, your overnight lows were warm, your daytime highs were extremely warm.
Mm-hmm.
But it literally didn't give the trees time to sleep.
Nope.
It didn't give, I mean, the deer numbers went through the roof because nothing was scavenging. They literally just felt like it was fall still.
Yeah, they just kept on going.
It threw everything for a loop,
Yeah.
including us, because we're like, well, we've never seen this pattern before. Here we go. Let's
Well, then
see
when
how it goes.
we did our little series on foliage. Then that was like going into that with the trying to forecast the leaves. Like it all connects.
As wacky as winter was last year, spring and summer were okay.
Yeah.
It could have
Could have been
a
worse.
lot worse.
Could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
But then we get into this winter, and it kind of threw us back into where we should be. This spring, as long as we stick to what we're seeing, we'll be fine. Trees
Yes.
won't wake up early. Animals are fine. It hasn't been a brutal winter,
No.
but it's back to more of what we should be seeing.
It is funny though, because I feel like this winter, yeah, it was like it was above average in some aspects, but pretty
Yes.
normal. Because we've had such abnormal winters the past 5 years, people like didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like it was funny to see like beginning of March, people being like, "I'm over winter," and I was like, "Guys, you're from here. You can't be over winter. This is our bit."
I think everybody watching, how long do you give winter before you're done with it? Like for
Yes.
me, it's about 3 months, 4 months
Yeah.
at most. Once I get to March, I'm done.
Yeah.
Especially depending on how bad it is. But this winter, yeah, it was March.
I'm St. Patrick's Day.
March, I was done with it. But a lot of people usually will say, 2-3 months. The problem is in Michigan, winter can hold on for 6 months.
Exactly. Well, you can have a mild, like, it depends. You could have like a
You can have
mild
snow in
December.
October, you can have snow in November. You can have snow in December. You can have
Yeah.
snow in January, February, March, April, and May. So, I mean, you could have roughly 7 months
of this.
of winter. Now, granted, you see middle days in between. Martin says March. Yeah,
Yeah.
March is usually the cutoff for me.
Yeah.
But it's been very weird in the last 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, not everyone's a hunter, so not everyone's out in the woods like I am in the fall. But
Right.
2015 to 2019, 2020,
Okay.
we'd get these bursts of snow. We'd
Okay.
have 6-7 inches of wet, heavy snow in October,
Okay.
December, or November.
Okay.
But they weren't typical hunting seasons.
Right.
In fact, there was one where it was super windy and it was like 70 degrees the day before opener. But then we
Got
got
it.
some snow on opener. And usually that's where I draw the line, is usually November. My birthday's the 17th. That's when we start seeing snow. That's when we start getting into the winter feel, blah, blah, blah. The last 5 years, we haven't seen that.
No.
The last 5 years have been maybe some snow in October, and it doesn't last long.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Remember,
November,
sorry not to cut you off. Remember downstate getting snow and we didn't for Halloween?
yeah, my sister was snowed in Muskegon.
Yeah, like,
We were in.
it was so opposite.
It was just normal trick or treating up here at
Yeah.
40 degrees. But yeah, that was an awkward one. But that's Halloween in Michigan. Halloween in Michigan, you can sometimes get snow, sometimes not. It's the transition period, so it is colder.
Mm-hmm.
But November is usually when you sit down to snow.
Yes.
The last 5 years, we have not gotten a ton of snow.
No.
Whether it is November or the beginning of December.
Yep.
I don't recall the last 5 years of hunting being so bare and warm. And that has been in good ways for me too. I don't remember shooting nearly as many deer in November as I have. But it's very different.
Yes.
And that is what we're talking about when it comes to the patterns. The patterns, and John had an interview yesterday that we showed with the Mackinac Bridge, and he had a really good point. The Bridge Authority is saying we are seeing more of these ice closure days now.
Yeah.
And it's just been the last 5-10 years that we're seeing more ice at the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah.
And John's like, yeah, the pattern is we're seeing that freeze line get farther north.
100%.
And I can attest to this through and through. From when I started here at 9 and 10 in 2010 to now, that freeze line used to be at M20, M46, down towards Saginaw, Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
And then it worked its way up towards us around 2015 or so. And then it was up towards Gaylord around 2020. And now it's up towards the Straits.
Yeah.
So whenever a system comes in, you usually see a freeze line where you see snow and then you have
It's the rain snow line.
mix, ice, and then rain.
Yep.
And back in the day, I say the day, it's 15 years, but back in the day,
Back in my day.
it would usually be the central lower would always see rain. And then the mixed line would be right up towards M20, US 10. And then we'd have snow north. That line is now getting farther north. Doesn't mean you won't always see that. You will always see that line north. It just means it's getting more prominent up north. The lower peninsula is seeing more rain now, and the freeze line is more up towards Petoskey, Mackinac, saying this. And the problem is that's continuing to go north. And if that continues to go north, what's that do for us when it comes to systems in general? Snow, a winter season.
Yeah.
That means the bridge gets ice. The bridge doesn't have anything they can do with ice. If there's ice on it, they have to close it down.
It's a bridge.
Right. They don't have heaters on it. They can't shake it. It's a 5-mile long extension or suspension bridge. There you go. Extension bridge.
Extension bridge.
It does extend when it's warm.
Yeah.
But the problem is if the bridge ices, it's closed. And it's closed for a long time until that ice is off that bridge. Which if you're the freeze line, it's not going to disappear very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's very weird looking at the climate of fall and spring in northern Michigan and what we're seeing trend, if you will.
Yes.
What is becoming the norm. That norm for where the freeze line is getting farther north. And that's what concerns me when it comes to winter seasons because one, it's cutting them down.
Yeah.
Like last year. Two, hurts the economy because you don't have that season.
Yeah, we rely on winter
anymore.
season. Yeah.
And three, it throws everything in northern Michigan for a loop. Whether it's the trees, whether it's maple syrup, whether it's the animals.
Hunting, whether it's everything, yeah.
Everything is now based off of what used to be this exact point, now weeks difference.
It is interesting you talking about the freezing rain line of someone who came here in 2022, where you grew up here, but you also came back and like saw where the freezing line was. When I first started here, in my mind, like Mount Pleasant, like we forecast all the way down to Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant was always the hot spot when I first started here. Like I was always a guarantee, like you're gonna see warm temperatures in that area. But even in the past 3 years of me being here, now you're slowly starting to see Houghton Lake kind of be that hot spot. Going over towards areas more east, which we always guaranteed Mayo and Alpena was always going to be colder spots. But it's now like encasing everywhere where you're seeing that warm spot, not even just in Mount Pleasant because they're just close enough to areas downstate that you kind of count them in. But now it's Reed City, it's Big Rapids, up to Houghton Lake, even Cadillac's starting to get that warmth. And it's really weird even my just 3 years now being here, seeing that small line move up of just warm air, not even just the freezing line, but in Reed City, when I lived there for a little bit, like we didn't see like as much snow as even like Cadillac saw. Like I was always guaranteed Rachel would sometimes drive from Big Rapids or Traverse City, and I would tell her which way she should come home that night, depending on how the snow looked, because it was always guaranteed that Traverse City was going to see more snow because of that freezing rain line.
Right. Oh, that's all topography, and a lot of people who grew up in Michigan, you could attest to this too.
Oh yeah.
I always figured US 10. So when my parents split, Dad lived down in Merrill, down by Saginaw. Mom lived up here, so Dad would come get us every other weekend, and we'd drive back. If it was a bad winter, there was a lot more snow south of US 10.
Yes.
If it was just a lake effect winter, the snow was gone by US 10.
Right.
So Claire was always that dividing zone for me.
Right.
Now as I'm older, Claire's no longer the dividing zone.
Not at all.
It's more up here. It's more up towards Cadillac is the dividing zone.
Yeah, I think Cadillac Mesec is like the big dividing zone. Like
the lake effects, yes, can stretch far, but the thing is, where you're holding on to the snow can really you can base winter off of where the snow is compiling and staying.
100%, yeah.
Temperatures and everything like that. But when you look at it, always, and side note, furniture stores always used to have this thing is like, if we get our first 3 inches of snow by November, whatever. I was like, that's smart. They're using the analytics, but it's no longer a sure thing.
No.
Whereas before it used to be a sure thing. So what was a dividing zone for me now, or as a kid now, is gone, 45 miles north. And that's the concerning part.
Yeah, 100%.
Because where is it going to stop? And is it going
to stop? And does
to
it stop?
Right. Because now that you're looking at winter, mainly in the eastern UP, yes, the snow belts will always have snow.
Yes. Lake effect's never changing.
No,
those belts are never leaving.
But the thing is, if you just have lake effect, it's going to be like a winter we had where you get 8 inches of snow and then it's gone with a day of sun.
Yeah.
Because there's no moisture to it. So it's a concerning thing of, how does that change? Is Mother Nature going to right the ship somehow, and how does she right the ship?
Right.
What pattern is going to send it back?
Or do we adapt? Or do you adapt? Like, do the trees start? I always think about too of like, are the trees already adapting to what we already see when it comes to foliage? Does that affect foliage? Are they already kind of figuring it out because of the past winters that we've had?
Evolution. All right. Are the trees getting more apt to waking up early? Is the growing season getting longer?
Exactly. Like, it's all these questions that we can sometimes say the things that we saw, like we can say last winter was abnormal because it was, but also is that now the new normal? Like that's the question that we have to.
And what season does it say not normal? Back to what you're used to years ago.
Exactly. I think that's like the weird part of climate that always is like sometimes frustrating is you have like one outlier.
Right.
But then you're like, is it an outlier or is that maybe what's going to be the case moving forward now?
So we've been rambling a long time.
Yeah.
45 minutes. It's the longest podcast. But no, the get all, end all, be all of this whole spring thing is we should be getting back to just a Enzo neutral coming out of La Nina.
Yes.
You should be looking at very typical late April, May conditions. And we should be getting our fair share of some rain here shortly as well, which we have. A lot of rain at the beginning of March.
Drought monitors looking great.
Way better, except for Midland.
Yeah.
Saginaw Bay area is kind of dry, but
Northern Michigan, we're doing pretty well.
We're doing better after seeing, just lake effect. But thank you guys for being here so much. We do appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them out our way and we'll get them answered into you or something to look up.
Something like that.
Because sometimes you guys have the questions that make us go, oh, let's look that up.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you all being here for the spring
Thank you, Nathan.
podcast. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. We will be back next week to talk about
climate. More climate talk.
But more so along global climate change, carbon footprint, all related to Earth Day. And everything that is going to it with more of a human
I believe
interaction.
Is Earth Day next Tuesday?
Yeah. That's why I put that week there.
No, I know, but I just wasn't sure what day Earth Day was.
I think it's Tuesday.
I think it's Tuesday when we have our podcast.
So there you go.
So
But we'll be talking about basically man's
how we're impacting
interaction
the weather.
to weather. And if that's a thing. A lot of people don't think it's a thing, but science likes to say, numbers say it's a thing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that
There's some
next
proof
week.
in the pudding.
Yeah, there is. But at the same time, there's a reason it's called global climate change and not global warming. Because not everybody's warming.
No.
There's a difference.
Good teaser.
Yeah, good teaser.
End it there. Don't talk anymore.
So thank you guys for being here, though. We appreciate you all for Beyond the Forecast podcast.
Yes, thank
I'm
you.
Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens.
I'm meteorologist Haley Fischetti.
Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you guys all on
Bye,
Beyond the
guys.
Forecast next week.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.